Welcome everyone to part 2 of my Next Fest February 2023 showcase, highlighting the many demos we played and my favorite ones from the Next Fest showcase. Alright, we're starting things off with one of the many Metroidvanias we played during Next Fest, and that's Astra Fading Stars. This is kind of in the Hollow Knight or kind of combat-focused Metroidvania vein, when our world is being invaded by creatures that are corrupting everything they see. It is up to us to, of course, battle them, gain all kinds of Metroidvania-style upgrades, and get through our maze-like world. So this one offers you this kind of like pulse that you can release to either open up doors, activate switches, and do other things to it. You'll collect resources that you can use to upgrade your weapons, as well as various relics that provide you with multiple passive bonuses. Now, one thing that I find that's kind of interesting from the store page is that it says that the world will be either procedural or randomly generated on each play, and from the demo, I did not see like any of that or how that's going to work. I'm kind of curious about where that's going to fit in the main game. Now, the combat is alright. Enemies just kind of like get pushed by your normal attacks. If you're hoping for like a Dark Souls or Soul and Sanctuary level of melee, I don't think this game is going that far. But it did look charming and the story was interesting. So if you are completely starved for Metroidvanias, then this is certainly another one you can add to your list. Speaking about platforming, we have Corsair's Madness. We are a pirate captain who, when our ship gets stranded on a mysterious island chain, it's up to us to rescue our crew, gain all kinds of fancy powers, and platform our way to victory. As you can probably tell by the footage so far, this game wears its Shovel Knight inspiration on its, sword sheath here. But this game definitely feels like it's being inspired by many different 2D action platformers. From Shovel Knight to, you get a air dash like in Celeste, as you can see, get an upgrade, you even have a transformative power that turns you into like this monster for several sections. So this is one of those games that it's not going to be reinventing the pirate wheel, but from what we play of this one on stream, it looks like it's going to be a very entertaining 2D platformer for fans looking for kind of like a collage of great 2D platforming design. We now have Plan B Terraform. This is a kind of Factorial-like, but in kind of the scale of a Planetary Annihilation or Supreme Commander in terms of a full planet. Your mission is to use the power of logistics, automation, and lots of resources to turn a desolate planet and make it habitable again. And to do that, you are going to have to build a lot of production chains. So this one is trying to be, I think, on the easier side in a way. Despite you just seeing that demo complete, it did take me quite a while to do it. How this works is you don't just set up buildings or set up chains from the resource to the production. Everything must go through stockpiles. The stockpile connects to the resource, then connects to the factory connects to another stockpile, etc. And you need to set up trucks in order to transport goods from either stockpile to stockpile or to cities. Cities have different demands, and when you complete them, they'll level up, improving your population cap, which will unlock more things in turn. Now, the main thing about this one is that it can be a little weird in terms of the chains, and I hope things do get a little bit more streamlined in terms of what tools and, ways of moving resources will happen. But this one looks like it could be a very entertaining kind of low-stakes take on a Factorial like when it is released, and I'm not sure if it's going to be in early access or not. And now for our next low-stakes game. This is Rallygator. You play an alligator who is apparently driving a car, or submarine in this situation. Your mission is to get from beginning to end without crashing your boat slash car slash at one point helicopter. The game itself kind of plays like a more casual take on the Trials formula, where you make sure that your wheels are always touching ground, or you will crash and return to the previous checkpoint. There are hidden secrets in each level, as well as collectibles to find. If you're looking for a super challenging game, Rallygator is probably not going to be it for you. But this one was certainly charming, and I'm curious to see how far they're going to take the different abilities and the challenge of the levels. For our next game, this is Crystarise. This is a kind of, action RPG meets very late city builder. Our mission is to rebuild a floating sky island in order to use its power to, save the world as we know it. The hook of this one is that you go down to the planet to fight monsters, collect resources, and so on. Those resources can be then used to turn into various cosmetic, buildings, and other things on your island, which in turn will allow you to gain permanent upgrades, such as building a tree that lets you gain more health, or a barrel that increases the strength of your bullets, and so on. So the loop here is explore the planet, collect blueprints and resources, go back up to your sky island, build new stuff, gain more power, go back down, rinse and repeat. And there is certainly a bit of a charm here, and kind of a quasi ActRaiser style of going in one area to then power up the other. The main issues of the game right now, one is that it's a little bit on the slow side of the start. This is definitely going for the RPG kind of grind of having to do a lot of missions, collect a lot of resources just to get a apple tree or a signpost. Now, the bigger concern about the game right now is that there's definitely some performance issues. You've probably seen the game hitching and being very jerky at spots, and that got very aggravating on my eyes in terms of the constant stopping and starting there. And I hope that by the time the game is officially released, that will get fixed. But there's certainly a lot of charm to Crystarise, and I'm curious to see where it's going to go in terms of how far they're going to take the upgrades and the progression in that respect. We now turn to Saga of Sins. This is a 2D action-adventure game where we play a warrior returning from the Crusades to find that their town has been corrupted with all the sins, each and every one that you can imagine. And they are going to have to save the souls of everyone here. Now, I am not versed at all in the Bible, so for anyone who is, please let me know in the comments if this is right or not. But does the Bible mention anything about psychonauts jumping into people's minds and turning into a double jumping werewolf in order to fight monsters? Again, anyone, please let me know in the comments about that. But our loop here is that for each chapter of the game, you will jump into the minds of various sinners, get into a action platforming escapades in order to find apples of sin, which will then allow you to unlock new areas, fight more demons, and gain more power. Yeah, I'm not quite sure again how biblically accurate this game is, but it was certainly charming to play. I really like the stained glass aesthetic that they're going for. And the main game promises there'll be different forms to transform into, reasons to return to levels, unlocking new powers, and so on. So, this is definitely a unusual game to play, but if you are looking for a, religious action platformer, and that's not too religiously accurate, then Saga of Sins could be an interesting one to check out. Now we turn to Swarm Grinder, and this is kind of, I think, a very interesting take on, again, the vampire survivor, bullet heaven, however you want to describe it, likes. Your mission is to set up mining on this planet infested by all manner of critters. You need to kill them in order to gain fuel. If you run out of fuel, your weapons and such will be powered by your health. But the challenge here is that the world, or the eggs that you see around, are constantly rebuilding. So it kind of has that kind of gauntlet feel, where you need to push through the spawners or the enemies to get to the spawners to then set up permanent progress. For every rig you get up, you'll be able to equip or upgrade a new weapon or perk. And this is one of those games where you can go from like full health to dead or dead to full very quickly. From what we played of this one, this is definitely going to be on the harder side, and it can be a little frustrating in terms of you make a little progress, but then you get pushed all the way back. But there's certainly some promising aspects here. For those of you looking for kind of that, again, bullet heaven-ish style gameplay, but with a little bit more structure and unlocks to it. And now for something a little bit on the different side, we have Dad by the Sword. This is a kind of Dark Messiah meets roguelike with lots and lots of dad jokes like. You play a dad who is trying to, well, fight monsters in a procedurally generated dungeon. And you'll use all your dadliest powers and weapons and hoagies in order to save the day. The combat itself is built on directional aiming, as you can slash left to right, right to left, and up to down. There's also parrying and blocking that you can make use of to deal with the various enemies. And the kind of destructibility of the enemies is a really interesting selling point in this one. Now, with that said, my main issue that I have with this game is that the field of view feels way too close, or it feels way too low, which makes it incredibly hard to do things like parry and read enemy tells. And from what we played of this one, I'm not quite sure, I guess, how far things are going to go in terms of leveling or progression, and if there will be any bosses or things like that. But this game is certainly, I guess, sticking to its charm and its aesthetics as you play and slice, kick, and hoagie your way through monsters. So if you're looking for a very action-heavy take on a roguelike, this could definitely be one to keep an eye out for in the future. Now we turn to Worldless, and this game has some very intriguing concepts to it as a Metroidvania. Here, the game itself is split between exploring this world looking for upgrades, powers, and so on in your typical 2D action platformer design. But instead of fighting enemies in the traditional way, it turns into a kind of action command focused turn-based RPG, where each fight challenges you to properly time your specific blocks to the enemy's respective attacks, and using attacks that they are weak against to drain their health faster. If you do it well enough, you can absorb the enemy, gaining a permanent stat point, which you can then use to further unlock new abilities and so on and so forth. So it's a very interesting mix of platformer meets RPG. The problem that this game has is that the onboarding just does not do a good enough job of conveying what it is that you should be doing in this game. For the life of me, I could not get the game's quote-unquote card parry to work on an enemy. And it felt like some of the pacing in terms of where I should be going, what should I be doing, just doesn't work with what they were presenting. I got to this enemy who, whenever they used their kind of special attack, I had no defense against it. I mean, literally no defense. Because you can either block physical, or you can block magical, but not both at the same time. So that's where the guard parry was supposed to be used for. But I could just not get this to work. And I don't know if I was supposed to go somewhere else, get another power, or if I was just not getting good enough at the combinations. But this game is definitely intriguing. They're going for a lot of different concepts in it. I don't quite know at this point if it's all firing on all cylinders. If they can improve the onboarding and maybe just get the playability and approachability of the start better, this could be a very interesting take on Metroidvania design. But for right now, it does feel more like a curiosity rather than a game that I would want to play all the way through. But we'll see if things can improve when the game is released. And with that, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have a few more games to look at for part 2 of the Next Fest Showcase. If you're interested in my thoughts on design, then check out my game design books. For entry-level students, we have 20 essential games to study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with more coming soon. And now we turn to a surprising hit of the stream in Greedventory. This is a point and fight action game where an evil society is taking all the great loot from quests, and you play a guy with, well, no pants and a shirt, and you are going to have to fight your way through a very deranged and very beautifully stylized and disturbing world. The loop here is that you'll use your mouse pointer as both sword and shield in order to block attacks, set up counters and parries, and make use of specific spells by holding down buttons. Now, where things get very interesting is that there's a little bit of a puzzle aspect to this game, as you'll unlock different items and tools that you can use, as well as the environment itself during a fight, in order to gain the upper hand. Now, the demo didn't really quite show too much in terms of differing gear, in terms of progression along those lines, but I am very curious to see where they're going to take the story as well as the gameplay, because the basics are really well done. My only complaint was that once we got into the actual fighting, it was a little hard to sometimes tell what was the proper window for blocking / parrying attacks. And when we ended it, we were kind of in the middle of a dungeon. I was hoping to see, I think, like a boss fight or something to kind of, I guess, elevate or push the mechanics further. But still, Greedventory shows a lot of promise. If you're looking for, I guess, a less action-heavy action game or a more action-heavy point-and-click game, this is definitely one you should be checking out. And now for something that is far less bloodied, but could be even more chaotic, it is Super Raft Boat Together. This is an action roguelike where you and up to 3 friends have to survive on the high seas with the world has been flooded, and every manner of fish and bird life trying to get in your way and stop you. There is no music here because we were playing this online and you would be hearing all the chatter that was going on while we were playing. But the basic gameplay is kind of like an Enter the Gungeon like. You'll move, shoot, and you'll have to repair the raft or reinforce it based off of the growing blue bar you see in the upper right. You'll collect various artifacts and trinkets that can change the properties of your character on each run, and each character has different abilities and different weapons that they can use. So the robot that I'm playing as right now has a laser sniper and can kind of float or hover while over water, while other characters get like a dodge roll and things like that. At the end of each area, you will fight a boss and then go shopping for additional trinkets and items that you can pick up. And we were having a lot of fun with this one. The main issue is that the screen is a little, I think, too zoomed in, especially when you have 2 or more characters, that it can be hard to tell where shots are coming from off screen. And we're not sure if there are, I guess, sea legs to the roguelike elements in the main game. As in, will there be different boss fights, different patterns or variances, things along those lines. But if you do have some friends looking for an action game to check out, this one seems like it will be a very fun one, and we're all interested in playing more of it when it is released. And now for another cute game, we have the Ramsey. This is a Metroidvania where you play either a squirrel or a gerbil, I'm not quite sure which, from Chip Mars, who is retelling the story of how he saved his planet from evil climate change and is found or is now stuck on Earth. And they're going to have to save the day through the power of Metroidvania. So our twist here is that your main form of movement tech is your kind of popcorn or cotton gun that allows you to shoot various bullets that each have different properties and will affect the world and enemies accordingly. You start off with the ability to just kind of shoot a kind of piece of popcorn that you can then bounce off of, and repeat to basically make makeshift platforms. There are unlocks in terms of health upgrades, being able to craft inventions that grant you new passives, and of course you'll be exploring the world of Chip Mars, trying to stop bad guys and so on. From what we played of this one on stream, this is not looking like it's going to be like a Hollow Knight level of difficulty, but a really solid, I would say like average difficulty platformer. The graphics are really well done in terms of the pixel art, and I'm curious about how this durable swirl story is going to end. So if you are looking for a very animal-heavy Metroidvania, then this is one that is certainly worth checking out. And now for a different kind of platforming with Bionic Bay. This is a beautiful looking kind of platforming or physics challenging platformer. The story apparently is that something has gone horribly wrong. The world is broken. And in order to figure out what is happening, we are going to have to jump, tumble, dive, and gain some other powers in a very just physics-driven kind of situation. Now, part of this game is just the beautiful and alien-looking background, so you're going to be running through in it. Your challenge is simply to get from beginning to end in each area, and of course not die from any myriad of ways. As the game goes on, you'll unlock the ability to swap your position with any object that you punch, and this will become a major part of the puzzle solving, especially when more advanced obstacles get introduced. Now, from a difficulty standpoint, some of the motions, because it's so physics driven, can be a little janky at times. One of the maneuvers you're going to have to do is a running jump into a dive to give yourself a little bit more distance, or a run into a roll into a jump into a dive. And it didn't feel as natural as when I first tried using it. But this is one of those games that this is not so much about following a very complicated story or getting all manner of crazy powers, but just some good old-fashioned platforming in a very beautiful world to see just where or what else the game is going to throw at you next. And if you are looking for a game that is all about the jumping, definitely check out Bionic Bay. And for the last game of today's part, it is Anomaly Collapse, a kind of strategy RPG that surprised me with how much I was getting into it. The world is full of evil creatures, and we play as a group of heroes who are going to save the day. The combat system itself reminds me a little bit of Rise of the Slime, that it is focused on movement and positioning as well as setting up proper attacking. How this works is that you have a movement meter, that's the green cubes in the bottom left, and your action points, those are the kind of yellowish cubes on the right. You gain AP or action by just standing still or not doing anything as a bonus, and you'll gain 1 per turn. How this all plays together is that certain characters gain bonuses, or you can combo and do multiple attacks per turn, but each time you want to use an attack, the cost goes up. And if you fill up your action gauge, you'll gain additional stats and bonuses in kind of a charged state. So there's this push and pull between how many commands you do in a single turn. The positioning matters in terms of enemies will aim for specific squares. You can set squares on fire, as you can see here, push and pull and all that good stuff. Now the game, in terms of its structure, seems to be kind of like a roguelike, where you'll go on a run, and you'll decide which areas to engage in, and you'll get different rewards. And the rewards, I believe, come in the form of mementos that can be attached to a character, either changing their stats, or giving them a special power while it is equipped, or both. From what we played of this one on stream, it looks like it's going to be on the challenging side. There are going to be different characters you can build your party around. They'll each have different specialties and moves, and so on. The only concern that I have from the demo is that we didn't really quite see, I guess, how much of a, roguelike or grand campaign structure this game is going to be. As in, is this going to be one where we're just going to keep replaying, unlocking passive bonuses and unlocks? Or is there kind of like a we just keep going until we either beat the game or lose kind of affair? But Anomaly Collapse was one of those games that I was really getting into. I'm excited to see where this game is going to go when it is released. And with that said, we are done with day number 2 of our Best of Next Fest 2023 coverage. There'll be more coming soon as I still have a few more days of footage to edit through. Thank you for watching. You'll find links to everything down below. Do the liking, subscribing, and bell ringing. Check out our Discord and Patreon, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where I examine the art and science of games.